In this video, I do a resin showdown to see which one of these is the best for 3D printing miniatures. But before we get into today's video, just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of January of 2024, we have this printed and painted DecoQuest Strongberg building. We have a set of Kraken Studio sci-fi minis. And we have $100 going towards the crowdfunding campaign, which my Patreon supporters are currently voting upon. Go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page to find out how you can be chosen by Bob to receive one of these gratitude gifts. So I've done a couple of review videos for different types of resin for resin printing miniatures, and I have received a couple more from Funcrecol. They sent me these 2 bottles of resin to do a review, and I decided to go ahead and stack it up with all of the resins that I've currently tried out and used to really try to find definitively which one of these are the best for miniature 3D printing. The most important quality in my book is actually the resilience of the miniatures, so that if I drop them or if they are mishandled, that they won't snap or break. So the toughness of the miniature is my primary concern, because you're going to see in a little bit I do a comparison of the quality of the print, but at this point 3D printers have become so good at the detail aspect that it is very, very difficult to notice a qualitative difference. And for me, who's primarily concerned about tabletop quality miniatures that are at the most 32 millimeter or possibly 40 millimeter on the gaming table, any greater detail really is lost on my gaming table. I printed out a couple of thin bits from miniatures and am going to be bending them to see which one of these resins is the most pliable, where it's going to make it so that your miniatures are relatively drop resistant and hardy so that it can handle day-to-day use. So let's go ahead and dive into the comparison. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, among all of these different test prints, I'm going to check out the quality first. And so we're going to start off with the standard. And mostly my general thoughts is that the level of quality now on all of these resins are so good that it is really difficult to see any difference. So I'm going to try to zoom in here as closely as possible. So I picked a model that does have a lot of detail to it. As you can see here, the standard actually is picking up all of that detail in her outfit here. I mean, check that out, as well as the scales. So this is again the standard. Now I'm going to grab the Funcrecol, and this is the toughness. And again, super hard to see one having more detail than the other. Still have some support on here that I didn't completely remove, but just look at the detail, really hard. And then finally, let's check out the miniatures line. And obviously there is a color difference, so maybe you can notice a difference only because the color is different. But again, check out the cloth, the details in the cloth, and I can't really discern a qualitative difference between the two. Again, it looks slightly different just because of the color and this being matte, and so in some ways that makes it look maybe a little bit more detailed. But I think my argument still stands that resin printers now, and I printed I think on a 8K machine, I'm not 100% sure, I can't quite remember what the resolution is, but the machines right now are so good that even the cheap printers are producing some amazing results. And I'm printing at 0.03 millimeter height, but you can get away with 0.05 millimeter height if you want to. But that, you know, the quality, again, I'm not noticing a ton of difference in quality. But really, I know we're here to test out the toughness. So again, this is the standard, and this is always a benchmark because it's relatively brittle. But let's bend it and see how far it will break. We can bend it before it breaks. And there it snaps, so it's relatively weak. And then here is Sunlu toughness. And I mentioned before that this had about the same properties as my Sunlu ABS plus 10% Siraya Tech. So we'll go ahead and again, here is the toughness. It does have more give. Look at that, I can bend it all this way and it still isn't breaking. So with the toughness, this is, now it broke. So that's how far I could bend it. And then here is the ABS with 10% Siraya Tech. Let's see if I can bend it as far. Yep, it's very similar. So the ABS with 10% Siraya Tech, and then this with the Sunlu toughness is very similar. They're both a lot better than the standard. So now let's go to the Siraya Tech Fast, which apparently is their version of the Siraya Tech Tenacious combination. So let's go ahead and bend this. And you know what? It's actually less bendable and malleable than our mix or with the Sunlu toughness, which I think I'm surprised by. Let's go ahead and bend this here. Yeah, this feels more brittle. Yeah, so a little bit disappointed in that. I actually think that the Sunlu toughness and the ABS mix was actually better. Now let's go ahead and go to the Funcrecol and compare their toughness with the Sunlu toughness and see if it has bend in it, which it does. So it's actually better. Whoa, look at that. There, it snapped. It's actually a little bit more malleable than the Sunlu toughness, but pretty close. So I would say this is actually better than the Siraya Tech Fast, but comparable with the ABS plus the 10% and the Sunlu toughness. It's pretty comparable. Maybe a little bit more give on the Funcrecol toughness. And finally, this is a Funcrecol miniature sign. So let's see how malleable. Nope, this is pretty brittle as well, comparable to the Sunlu standard. So relatively brittle. But let's actually see if we can see a qualitative difference in print. Can you see a qualitative difference? Oh no, both of them seem pretty similar to me. Okay, let's do another spear test. This is a lot thinner. So this is the ABS with the Siraya Tech Tenacious, 10%. It's a pretty good bend. Look at that. Look at that. Wow, I can actually touch the ends and it still hasn't broken. So that's pretty good actually. Look, can I bend it back? I can pretty much bend it back. But if I grip it here and bend here, yeah, it will snap. This is the Sunlu toughness. Let's see how far I can bend this. Can I touch the, I can touch the ends together. Bend it back. Go to the end. Yeah, breaks. So very similar. Finally, the Funcrecol toughness. See if I can bend this to touch the ends. I can. I can bend it back. And then, yep, that breaks too. Just to test, here's Siraya Tech Fast. Yeah, I can't even, just snaps right away. Very similar to the standard Sunlu Standard, breaks, and then the Funcrecol miniatures. Oh, look at that. It's actually a little bit flexible, but it will break. So, okay, in terms of which one is best for miniatures, I would say definitely the toughness ones win out. With Funcrecol toughness being, I think, feels a little bit more pliable before it breaks than Sunlu toughness, so maybe Funcrecol is a little bit better, but they're very, very similar. And then the ABS with the 10% Siraya Tech, I'm surprised is actually better than the Siraya Tech Fast, which is apparently their mix. So because you don't have to mess with mixing, my recommendation still is to go with the toughness. And then if you are totally unconcerned about the resiliency of your models, I think you either go with the standard, or if you like this color, this base color of a tan, a reddish tan, then you can get the Funcrecol miniatures, but honestly the standard, the cheapest one on here, still not a significant drop in terms of quality or detail here. So overall, that's my recommendation, is go with the toughness if you're actually handling your miniatures. So there you go. In terms of resilience, you're going to find about the same level of quality between the two toughness versions, as well as the ABS plus the 10% Siraya Tech Tenacious that is mixed. So if these three are the recommended ones, then which one would I suggest that you buy? Let's go ahead and turn to the cost of each one of these resins, where you definitely have the cheapest at the Sunlu Standard, which is about $18 for a kilogram. That is going to be almost half of most of these other resins at a kilogram, and you can even save more money if you buy the 2 kilogram version, which is right around $33. So if you're making a lot of terrain, or you're making things that you're not going to handle that much, definitely this is my go-to for sheer amount of bang for your buck and still having a pretty good quality print. But regarding the toughness ones here, the Sunlu toughness actually comes in at $36, which is pretty pricey. Again, that's for 1 kilogram. And these are today's prices. I looked them up on Amazon. Prices are constantly fluctuating, and there's going to be a little bit of difference. So make sure you go ahead and check my Amazon affiliate links below. I really appreciate it if you use that to purchase any of these resins, as I get a little bit of a bonus for that. But at least for now, this is pretty expensive at $36, because the ABS-like and the Tenacious is going to come in at $30.20 combined. Considering if you buy a 500 milliliter, you can save even more money if you get the kilogram of the Tenacious, although it's pretty pricey. But I divided the cost of this by 5 to mix with 1 kilogram of the ABS-like, and that's how I came up with the amount of $30.20. So that's going to be cheaper by almost $5 from the toughness per kilogram. So it's sort of up to you whether or not you want to bother mixing it up, but the resiliency of miniatures is going to be pretty similar between these two. So if you're purely going for ease without needing to mix, then go ahead and buy the toughness. But how does it compare to Funcrecol's toughness version, which again qualitatively is as resilient as those ones, maybe slightly more? That's going to set you back the most, because this costs $42. So is the most expensive among the toughness options. Siraya Tech Fast comes in at a little bit more than $30. So it is comparable to the mix and is cheaper than either of the toughness options from Sunlu or from Funcrecol, but it is disappointingly not very resilient. So I would not suggest actually purchasing the Siraya Tech Fast. And then finally over here, we do have the miniature version from Funcrecol. I do think it has really, really good detail on it, but I don't think it's worth getting for tabletop miniature gaming, because it is just as fragile as the Sunlu Standard, but at more than twice the cost of the Standard. I definitely would not recommend the miniature version unless you are again, making display pieces where people aren't necessarily going to be handling it. I also do have to say that the Funcrecol does cure slower than the other resins. With all of these here, I use the same settings on my 3D printer, which was about 1.7 seconds per layer, standard layer, whereas this was almost a second more than that, close to 3 seconds per layer. So the curing times on these was higher than this. For me, I'm not doing speed printing anyway, so that's not a factor, but that might be an issue for you if you are into optimizing for fast printing on your resin printer. So again, in conclusion, for anything that is not going to be handled that much and is the cheapest but also has good amount of detail, recommend the standard from Sunlu, as it is almost half the price of most of these. But in terms of actual tabletop miniature gaming where you're going to be handling or potentially dropping your miniatures, I would suggest any of the toughness ones. And then if price is an issue, I would go with this combination. But if you don't want to mix, then it goes to Sunlu toughness. Although the price difference between these two is only about $5. The other thing with Sunlu is that you can buy these at 2 kilograms and save approximately $2 to $5 for doing that. So just keep that in mind. So go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. Also comment below if there is any brand that you have used to be better than the ones that you see here, especially in terms of resiliency of miniature handling. Go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page. Again, you're going to have a chance to be chosen by Bob to receive one of the gratitude gifts of this month. But happy printing, happy gaming. We'll see you next time.